Welcome to the Reality of Herbal Therapy podcast, episode 68. So today I was going through some old podcast episodes, kind of like to get some inspiration for today's episode. And I was listening to one from February of 2014, so going back 6 years. And in the episode, Dr. James started off telling about how he got his start working as an herbalist, but also how his formulas came to be. And I thought that would be a really neat thing to share with you. So let's give it a listen, and then I will come back and visit with you.
I am Dr. James. I've been in clinical work since 1980. I say that, and that sounds like a very short period of time, really. When I say that in front of my kids, they look at me with glazed eyes. I'm trained in herbology, nutrition, iridology, kinesiology, hand and foot reflexology, three forms of massage therapy, laseropathy. It just goes on and on. And the reason I've gained the degrees that I've gained is because if I have a patient that comes to me and I'm unable to help them with the information that I have, I go out and seek more information until I'm able to help everyone that seeks my help. My herbal formulas are the result of helping people. In fact, can I tell a little story? When I first began, I was at school. It took me quite a while to find out where I could get the education I wanted. The education I wanted to be able to be educated in herbology and nutrition and that kind of stuff. And at the time when I was seeking that information, there wasn't very many herbalist colleges around. In fact, there was none in the United States. There was one in Canada and Europe that I found. So obviously I went to the one in Canada. So my education, when I was up there, I had a professor. Her name was Ella Bersnick. She was about this tall, and she had the personality of a drill sergeant. You know, she was Latvian. If you ask her a question, she told you exactly what she thought. There was no painting it rosy or nothing like that. She just told you how it was. So I found myself admiring her because I really admire people that say what they think. Well, she said, James, you know what you ought to do? And this was toward the latter part of my education. And I said, no, what should I do? She says, you need to get a van and make house calls. Really? Okay. Why? She says, it makes more sense. You don't have any overhead. You get a route. You go around, see people. They don't have to come to you. So I did that for quite some time. In fact, I had a ice cream truck. Basically, it was an old postal truck. And I go from house to house. And then it got to the point where more and more people were needing to see my services and see me. So I ended up getting an office. But as a result of seeing patients, my formulas grew out of that. It wasn't that I thought, well, I'm an herbalist now, and I'm going to make an herbal formula to compete with all the other herbal formulas out there. I'm going to make it better. It was never my intent to make herbal formulas to compete with the marketplace. My herbal formulas were to help patients and help people. So I had two formula books. I had book 1 and book 2. So when I went in to see people, I had book 1, and on page 3, the second one down was a formula. So the formula that I made was 1, 3, 2, and then it had the ingredients. Okay? And that's the way I kept track of my formulas. And as in the records I put down, I had 1, 2, 3 in their regime to get better. Well, as time went on, these formulas began to come together as far as an arthritic formula and a urinary tract formula and a memory formula and different things like that, to where they no longer they were in the book, but it was no longer a whole bunch of arthritic formulas and a whole bunch of other formulas for prostate disorders. They began to become one formula. Okay? And so then we decided, okay, instead of marketing them as 247 1, which was in book 1, page 42, Formula 1, we had to come up with names. So I get my kids together. I have 11 children. And I get them together and I say, okay, this is what this formula does. And I get their suggestions. We had a formula that's called Clean-Lax. We have a formula called Bladney. We have a formula called Phlegm Up. I wanted to name Phlegm Up Hawk and Spit. But nobody would, ew, Daddy, ew, yeah. Now they want to name it Hawk and Spit. My own dear mother said, no. Nobody would buy that because of the name Hawk and Spit. But that's basically it, bring phlegm up out of the lungs. So my formulas were the result of working with patients. It wasn't the result of just going to the marketplace and saying, well, Nature's Way has this product, so I'm going to make one to compete with it. I don't care about that. And then I found that as I would make house calls, I found that people would only do herbal teas about 2 weeks. They started complaining about the sticks and the twigs and the leaves in the sink and having to brew the tea and make the water hot and all that kind of stuff. So I tried extracts. And extracts, they would always forget them. Well, it's in the wrong place. It's not in the refrigerator. It's not with me, so they wouldn't take them regularly. Americans swallow pills. So I began to encapsulate. Well, how many of you have ever tried to encapsulate? Have you ever tried to encapsulate? Take them apart? You want to know how to encapsulate? Who wants to know how to encapsulate the right way? I used to take the end and I'd make a little funnel and I'd try to get it packed. There's an easy way to do that. The best way to do it is in a bowl that's fairly small with kind of a rounded edge. Okay? And then you take the herb and you put it in the bottom of the bowl. You mound it up. Then you take that capsule and you take the big end. And you just hold it in your fingers, and then tap the open end down into the powder. Just tap it into the powder and it fills itself up. In fact, you can put more powder in a capsule that you encapsulate yourself than a pharmaceutical grade machine. Okay? Which is pretty impressive. I used to make house calls. Excuse me. And I would look at my patient load the next day. And I'd go home and I'd make formulas for my patients so that I would have what they need. I can only do 85 capsules an hour. I know. So I'd hurriedly make the capsules I needed. Then I went to an encapsulator that would do 24 at a time. Then I went to one that did 100, and then one that did 300 at a time. Now we have one that does 45,000 an hour, which is a pharmaceutical grade encapsulate machine. But you can let's say you want to encapsulate golden seal or ginger or something like that. Buy the powder. Encapsulate it yourself. It's a wonderful experience, and you just tap it down in. Don't take it all the way out, but just kind of tap it down in. Then if you want it real full, take the end that's a little smaller and tap it down in there and fill it up. Push it on. Well, you can make them just as hard as you can be just by hand. It's a lot of fun to do that.
So what are some of your takeaways from that? There were some really neat things I remember in that. I actually still have one of Dr. James's formula books in my office, and kind of like flip through it every so often. He doesn't have names with it, but each formula was created for an individual, and as he would come up with a formula for a different individual, he would try something different, and go back to the different formulas until he came down to the formulas that we're making today. And it's kind of neat to think that even though each formula applies to a broad group of people, that they are still individualized. So as Dr. James was making it, as you're taking that formula, it's individualized for you. Even though it applies to a whole lot of people, that formula was made just for you. Just like if Dr. James was still making his house calls and still coming to your house, that formula that you're taking was made specifically and specially just for you. So it's, that's what makes these formulas so special and so unique, is that, like he said, he didn't go to the health food store and say, oh, well, this one here is selling really, really good, I'm going to copy it. Or this is really, really hot on the market right now, I'm going to copy that. The formulas were made for a certain person, and that certain person got to influence the formula that you're taking today. And doesn't that make him special? Kind of makes him really neat, huh? Another thing I wanted to talk about is when when we recorded this, it was actually a class that we did there at our office in Albuquerque. And so he was drawing it up on the board as he was explaining how to encapsulate. So I thought I'd give you a little more detail on that, because you can't see what he was drawing on the board. So if you know what a gelatin capsule looks like, or a veggie cap, basically it comes in two pieces. There's the cap and the body, and you just kind of pull on them and they come apart. So what he was saying is, you get a bowl of whatever powder you want, and then you kind of mound it up in the middle of the bowl, and you take the body of the capsule, so it's the longer part. It's like about 3 times as long as the cap for the capsule, and you turn it upside down so the body the hole is on the bottom, and you just tap it into the powder that you have in your bowl. And what that does is it pushes the powder up and it packs it. And you can actually, like he said, you can get a stiffer and more herb into a pack than any of those machines. And then once you have it done, like if you want, you can like tap and fill up the cap to it, or just put the cap on, and then you kind of squeeze it, and there's a lip, and it will lock together. Why don't we do that? Why? Because like he said, you can make 85 in an hour, or you can make the 45,000 in an hour. So to be able to get it out to a whole lot more people, we use the machine. So I hope this has been insightful for you. I hope it gives you kind of a glimpse into Dr. James. If you knew Dr. James, we'd love for you to like kind of share what you knew about him and what made it special for you. And if you didn't know Dr. James, hopefully it kind of gives you a glimpse into who he was. To know that each of those formulas, it was specifically made just for you. That each formula is special, and that it's something that we take great pride in producing and making for you guys. So if you guys have any questions or anything you'd like to let us know, we'd love to hear from you, and we will talk to you next time. It is not the intent of professional herbal instruction or any persons associated therewith to diagnose or prescribe. The intent is only to offer herbal information for your consideration. In the event you use this information without your doctor's approval, you are prescribing for yourself, which is your God-given right. But professional herbal instruction or any persons associated herewith assume no responsibility. The claims and statements made on this podcast have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.